Good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of High Top Sports. Today we are in the studio with, of course, Mr. Swoderquist today. That's how we're going to refer to him as, because we got 2 days in the building. It has finally happened. The Gator world has come together. Mr. Gator Dave from Gators Breakdown is joining the show. Dave Waters, how we doing, sir?
Good, I'm good. Music got me hyped up a little bit. So yeah, I got the same song on mine over and over again. So
I like to find new ones. It kind of changes. You saw me going through just clicking. You got to just find something that kind of just tickles me a little bit, gets me fired up for the show. So we got to get fired up. It's the hype music. But Gator Dave, as they're calling you in the chat, I know this is a long time coming. We're excited to have you on, man. I appreciate you taking the time to hop on here. Shout out to Swoderquist for bringing us all together. How you doing, man?
Doing good, man. Said best day of the week, Wednesday. Let's get it. Let's go, Shelton.
Let's get it. We had a good time, all three of us. We are at the Orange and Blue game, and that is going to be the first order of business. We've got a lot to go over today. Orange and Blue game first, then kind of just the future of the spring game. What's going to happen with that? How do they plan to move forward with it being on Thursday, Friday, possibly Saturday? Billy kind of talked about that a little bit. Then portal news. Obviously, that opened up this past weekend. There's been some guys slowly trickling out. We'll talk about the Gators, who left, who stayed, who didn't go, and obviously the targets for the Gators as well. Then we'll get into some recruiting. Recruiting has been heating up. We had a massive recruit come on the commit during the Orange and Blue game. There was a lot of noise that there would be more, and we'll talk about that as well. And then Gators are huge underdogs going into next season, as we would expect, so we're going to get into that as well. But first order of business is going to be our last take here on the spring game. I know Gator Davis had his thoughts. Swoderquist and I, we talked about it on the call-in show last Thursday, which was an absolute blast. But I want to give us our last little kind of overtake. So Swoder, pass it to you first, and then we'll go to Gator Dave on the spring game.
Yeah, I mean, when you watch a spring game, and I said it last week, you can't, I mean, you can take away some things from a spring game, but then you kind of got to throw everything else out the window. I watched a lot of other spring games around the nation, too. I mean, if you go to Florida State's game, Jordan Travis didn't look that good in the spring game, but we've seen him look good during the regular season, right? Same with Carson Beck. We don't even really know what we're going to get with him. He did just as well as Mertz. I think he had a touchdown through for like 230, 240. It's kind of like what Mertz did. But when it comes down to just a regular spring game and looking at what the starting quarterback Mertz did, I mean, you go 62% for 244 yards, a touchdown, while you're getting pressured on top of that, because we all know that there was injuries to the offensive line. We saw the high snaps. We saw all that other kind of stuff. But to do and put up the numbers that he did while he was getting pressured, I kind of, like I said, you can't take too much away from a spring game, but I kind of, was tip my hat to that. I mean, he didn't really have a lot of time to throw the football in a lot of scenarios. Sometimes he did, and he kind of struggled with that a little bit too. So you got to kind of look at that too. But at the end of the day, I liked what I saw kind of from the offense, even though there wasn't a lot of points scored. I mean, you saw a lot of speed out there from Aiden Mazzell and some of those other receivers, Andy Jean with that one big play where it looked like everybody's trying to tackle him. And of course, you had that good return there from ETN. And you're really curious to see what to do on special teams there. But the one thing that really stuck out to me, especially, and it may not have stuck out to a lot of people, of course, the defense played pretty well. We all know that. Was the kicking game. It still looked like there was, miscues. Obviously, you're missing field goals, and Trace Mack, I think, kicked some of those field goals too. 5-star Coles kicker,
Kick the winner.
I think the biggest thing going forward that I'm concerned about would be kicking. But I mean, as far as like just overall into a spring game, I don't like to look too much into it, but I did like to see the fact that the defense was able to hold the offenses to 10 and 7 points, because, I mean, let's face it, the last 2 years, the defense has been pretty anemic. I mean, they've been ranked in the hundreds in just about 9 to 10 statistical categories. Anytime from like 2020 all the way to here, you didn't really see good defense, even in the spring game. So if there's a good takeaway that you got from that spring game was, okay, well, we played better defense, regardless of who was injured, regardless of what was happening. We played better defense. There wasn't a lot of broken coverages. There was some, but not a lot of them. And overall, I'm okay with it. I would rather see what happens in fall and go from there. But I'm not too worried about it just because it's a spring game. And I watched some of the other ones and they didn't look too hot either. So
I think the big thing, like you said, a lot of the games came out and the noise kind of settled, but we were the first team to go. We were the first to go in line. So we were kind of easy to point the finger at. We were the only thing to look at. So we were on everybody's radar. I feel like Colorado is going to be in that same boat this Saturday. Everyone's going to be watching, especially how much hype and noise has been behind it. They're going to face the same type of critique, in my opinion, but I feel like he has the advantage of going second, being second in that limelight where he can kind of spin it a little bit. Gator Dave, what were your thoughts on everything? You were there at the game.
Yeah, it's look, you can take some things away from a spring game. You just don't know what to take away from a spring game. We'll know when the season comes along. I'm sure there's something you can make a connection back to the spring game, but you're not going to know till September, October, whatever. So, I mean, last year, of course, we were talking about, hey, there's Anthony Richardson and that great performance he's had. Let's go. And we know how that went. We didn't see that Anthony Richardson on a week-to-week basis in the season. So, it did seem like for the offense, they could get some things going, but when they would string together 2 or 3 plays, and here comes a bad snap. And that probably wouldn't have happened if Kingsley out there snapping the ball. So it was really not only, did they, probably not have the best performance. It's just when they did, if they did do something good, then, they really couldn't follow it up. So it really couldn't just string together momentum was probably the biggest thing for me. Not just, it was just really hard for the momentum to get going for the offense. But also, I'm going to give some credit to Billy Napier on part of that too, for allowing Austin Armstrong to call the defense he wanted to put out there. He did not, the offensive line was struggling. Napier could have went and say, hey, we got these backups. We're having trouble snapping the ball right now. Dial it back just a bit. No, he didn't. He let Armstrong go out there and call the defense he wanted to get, and it was very confusing. They didn't blitz a whole lot. There were times they brought 5 or 6, but they were bringing 4 a lot. And these simulated pressures and creepers, you didn't know which 4. You didn't know which 4 were coming. So it was more confusion for the offensive line instead of just Florida bringing 6, 5 guys and just outnumbering an offensive line. So I'm going to give credit to Billy Armstrong also for just kind of, or Billy Napier towards Austin Armstrong for just letting him go out there and do his thing. And Austin, and maybe at the same time, get some confidence for this defense. As Dave alluded to, it's been 3 seasons now since we've seen this defense play with any kind of positivity, any kind of confidence that has waned in the last 3 years. So, we heard all spring long about how they were going to be hyped based off of their defensive coordinator being that way, him kind of bleeding over his attitude and his approach to this defense. And they let him sit there and do it all night long. So, it's Billy Napier being an offensive coach. I have a little more confidence in him being able to figure out some things when the season rolls around. But of what we've seen from this defense and just kind of how they've had to maybe, take it on the chin the last 3 years for one night. All right, let them go out there and have some fun a bit. Get their, get kind of the approach that Austin Armstrong wants out there, and then we'll see where it goes. So there's my 2 things take away. Not really when they could build momentum on offense, something would they just kind of shoot themselves in the foot, but also Billy Napier not calling the dogs off on defense.
I think the big picture here is there's a reason why we're here talking about it, and we're not in the field calling the plays. Okay, the coaches know what they're doing, but that's a huge point of, look, I think also too, Billy probably said, hey, here's how we're going to approach this. Austin Armstrong came out there with a lot to prove, as did the defense, like you said, having a lackluster performance the last few years, and they came in and punched the offense in the mouth, and I don't think the offense was really truly expecting it to be, for defense to be that aggressive, and kind of was playing catch-up the whole time. Watching the defense play, it was actually really exciting, and it felt like they were playing LSU, how they reacted to some plays. And even after the game, when they kicked the game-winning field goal, there was a lot of animosity, good animosity, right? Just good old-fashioned competition on the field. Obviously, that clip of Austin Armstrong kind of got a little up and going a little bit of getting excited, talking smack to one of the coaches, but that was him just being fired up of like, hey, told you I was coming, here we go. And again, I think we have to also understand, too, I heard a lot of people kind of talking. I talked to a few fans after the fact of Billy probably had a script of things he wanted to work on, right? He probably wasn't calling plays to necessarily what was in front of him, but simply, hey, here are some 8 things we need to work on. So we're going to go down our list. The defense was very reactive. And also I was thinking about too, think about the Under Armour game and the Army game, the high school game, right? The defense always looks much, much better because defense is very reactive. They get to respond to what's happening as the offense has a lot to learn, a lot to go over, right? And so typically on those high school games, that offense isn't truly synced up just yet. But the defense always looks great because they're just reacting. They get to use their athletic ability and just dominate. That's also how it felt too, is look, the offense still has a lot to figure out. There's a lot more for them to do, where the defensive guys, yes, they're learning plays, they're learning offenses, they're learning their side of the ball, but mainly, hey, just be aggressive. Go do this, A and B. It's more simplified on the defensive side when the offense doesn't have as much underneath their belt as the other team does. Because look, we're 15 practices in. This is Graham Mertz's 15th practice as a Florida Gator. And everyone's comparing that it was really close with Miller and Mertz. How I looked at it was Mertz looked more comfortable just as general in the backfield as a quarterback, right? Obviously, you could tell the time paid off. Miller looked comfortable in the system, being a second time through. I would hope he would. But Graham really started to show his experience towards the end. Like you said, the rhythm started to happen towards the end. It was a bad snap or something kind of fluke or a fumble that would just to end the run. But all in all, you saw some good things going on. And again, what Swalderquist said, comparing it to other quarterbacks in other spring games, numbers weren't that bad. But when it first came out, it felt like it was horrendous because it was the only thing to compare it to. Love here.
One more on that, Shelton, too, because you were talking about offense and play calling and all of that. And I do think there's some truth to it of the vanilla playbook,
yes.
And the quarterbacks were talking about it. Think about it. This defense probably also knew a lot of what this offense wanted to do.
Sure.
Or was going to put out there on a limited basis. So they knew, some of the routes. They knew just how far the dropbacks were going to be. They kind of knew. I'm sure Austin Armstrong knew pretty much the vanilla game plan Billy Napier was going to go out there. They could go out there and take advantage of it.
That's a solid point. If you know what's going to happen. You see the answers before the test comes, so you're going to be overly aggressive. And the offense, again, they're working on certain things. They're trying to keep it in between the mustard and the mayonnaise, that we like to call it, but in between the mayonnaise, right, on the field. So that's a good point too. And again, I think confidence, allowing the defense to believe that, hey, we can be aggressive, we can be dominant, and giving Austin, again, the reins was very important that early on too, to show, hey, he's excited. We're excited to have him. Here's what's happening. And to kind of capitalize on that, super chat here from Mr. Chris Shirley, $10 says Billy Ballsack said, "Here's your damn defense, Gator Nation. Woo! Go Gators." So that's a point there of him. All the noise of where's our defense at? This kid's too young. He can't do it, et cetera, et cetera. And then they show up. So Mr. Rick James says, yes, B, $5 super chat. So appreciate you boys for the love. But all in all, I think the big takeaway, what Swalderquist kind of said, it's a spring game. And Dave, you said it as well too. How much of it we'll be able to tell actually had an impact later on in the season. Because I think a big thing you said as well is Anthony looked like a rock star. We came off the spring game last year thinking he's going to win the Heisman. We're winning 8 or 9 games. We were fired up because we were throwing 80-yard bombs left and right. We were hooting and hollering. Then we realized, oh shit, nobody can guard on defense. That's why we looked as good as we did. So there's a lot to look into. Again, I think the reason why the anxiety, right, and the negative noise was simply due to the fact it was the first game, right? But the energy, all in all three of us went. I want to get your kind of takes too as a fan, how you felt that day went. I'll go to you first, Gator Dave. I thought, for me, I loved it. I loved every second of it. I think it was fantastic. I think the energy was good. It wasn't too crowded, but you saw a lot of faces. Sean Kelly was out walking around. Todd Golden was walking around. Strickland was walking around. They felt like more comfortable, like, hey, I'm not going to get bombarded. That was really cool to see. A lot of old players were there hanging out. The Pouncey brothers are kind of just walking around nonchalantly saying hey to everybody. Like, as a Gator fan, that's really cool. And I think if you can bring that to a spring game and the recruits see how it's a family atmosphere, it's more than just what's on the football field. I think and everyone's like, oh, it's going to affect recruiting. They understand that it's practice. Like, let's be honest here. I think they're going to get a vibe. How's the energy? And for me, I thought it was fantastic. Dave?
Yeah, right outside the stadium, it was. Of course, you're not getting that game day campus feel. It's not
Sure.
electric all around campus, but right there in front of the stadium with the Gator Walk and all the tents and all the fan stuff they had set up out there. Yeah, I mean it was electric there. And as you mentioned, this is probably one of the few chances you get to maybe interact for the first time with some of the former players that are around and going out there. So, and of course, shout out to Florida Victorious too. A lot of excitement around them, kind of launching a new NIL the deal there, and kind of getting in the forefront of that. So there was a lot of excitement of learning more about them for a lot of the fan base as well, walking through the spring game. So and then once you were inside the game, yeah, maybe you didn't get the offensive fireworks that you were expecting, but it kind of having that night game feel and pre maybe first quarter, whatever, it was pretty exciting. Then you get a hurdle from Cam Carroll. It kind of lights the crowd up a little bit too.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. Pre-game, I thought it was just fine there for how it felt for spring game.
And the Victorious, that was huge as well, too. I mean, we saw advertising for that. That was big. For the Gator Collective, I know they kind of had a hard time as the collective brand had a hard time getting up and going and connected to Florida. I also know some rules have passed since the collective has started, but now with Victorious, it feels like that transition has gone very smoothly, which we're going to get into a little bit later on. There was a presser this week, which we'll break down, but that was great. Swolder, what was your thoughts, man? I know we had a good time hanging out. We got to go on the field afterwards. That was really cool.
You can hear me, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't get many trips down to Gainesville every year because I'm in Woodstock, so it's about a 400-mile drive for me, but about 360, I would say. But anytime I go down there, I always have fun, no matter what the outcome is, lose, win, anything. The tailgatings, I mean, Dave's been to many Harmonica Woods tailgates as there is. Yeah, man, just overall the atmosphere. I mean, that was just like you said, for average fan or somebody that comes down there, it was phenomenal. I mean, you had the Townsend tent over there that you were at earlier. You were talking to Major, right? Went live with them. Of course, me and Dave were hanging out. Florida Victorious tent. I think it's just having it on a Thursday. And I know we're going to get into it or whatever. Yep. It kind of, for some people, it sucks, but at the same time, as you said, you get more of the engagement. Like you saw Scott Strickland, Todd Golden. I saw a lot of people down there. So, I mean, I was okay with it. I had fun regardless of the results. And of course, I came home and watched some of the film because we were talking a lot when we were in the stands. And a lot of people were talking to us. So it was good, though. I liked it.
Yeah, that was a good time. I get to meet all the guys who watch the show and whatnot. But let's talk about the game possibly moving or staying on Thursday. Billy spoke about it a little bit. Kind of say, hey, each year we're going to address and see what's best for us. And I want to get both of your takes. Look, I love the fact that it's on Thursday. I think it's massive not having to compete because Friday night for me was a big one. Miami and UCF are both on Friday night. UCF, whether we like it or not, is coming in recruiting. They got Stacey Gage to go there. Stacey Gage had to choose between there and Miami. That's huge in my opinion. Stacey Gage being as close to Miami as he did. I believe Tavion Swift committed that day to UCF. So think about it. All those recruits that had to choose between Miami's spring game versus UCF. Imagine if Florida was going on as well. That's a lot of competition for what? For no reason. And again, I think the atmosphere the Swamp brings, and it had a small vibe, not a complete full game vibe, is important to recruiting. Dave? Gator Dave, what are your thoughts on that? On it moving, staying?
I hope this is the last time it's on a Thursday.
Okay.
I do. I get it. And what Napier was alluding to as far as recruiting goes, I don't blame him at all for last year and this year for the Thursday night to kind of get it off and away from the other schools. But he kind of alluded to is kind of also where you're at in maybe timeline of your program. So as Florida does start recruiting better, then you have to worry less about this guy going there or this guy going there. If you're confident in what you're doing, they're going to be here anyway. Or even if they don't, you kind of feel confident where you're at when you start recruiting. You start to get some recruiting momentum. And I think we see that right now for Florida. Sure. So as he's building this in the early stages, hey, let's go ahead and not have a lot of competition. But once we get this thing rolling, we can handle the competition. So I don't mind the Thursday moves for the first 2 years. But overall, I'd still like to see it on a Saturday. More people get to come. We get to have our normal tailgates. It's more of a full stadium. In that regard. So I do think, once Florida gets the recruiting train rolling a bit, they don't have to worry so much about what all the other schools are doing.
That's a great point, and I didn't even think about that. Of that mindset of, look, the first 2 seasons, it's okay to take a step back because we have a lot of hurdles we're trying to jump over, right? So let's not have to worry about this hurdle. But when we get these things figured out, we're going to come after you because we're not afraid to be on Saturday. That's a solid point. I didn't even think of that. I like that mentality. Like, hey, we can now compete with you, because I think that's always been the knock of, why are we afraid to go up against them? I've taken the route of, like, it's not necessarily afraid, but why have to? But I think you're right. If we can go on Saturday, that stadium will fill out a lot more. Now, I would still like a Saturday night game. I don't want to be sitting in the swamp at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in the middle of April. But a nighttime game on Saturday, I think, would be a lot more ruckus than this past Thursday was. What are your thoughts, Swolder?
I am good with the Saturday 7:30, man. I'm kind of where Dave's at. Personally, I don't like it on a Thursday, but if you can get me a 5-star recruit or a couple 5-star recruits, I'm okay with it being on a Thursday. But eventually, like Dave said, you want it on a Saturday. And plus, if you do have it on a Saturday, more people will come, as he says. There's going to be more tailgates. And then for the recruits that visit, will get more of a game day atmosphere like when they come to the stadium. And it'll be more full, and they kind of get to see what it looks like when it's full. But at the same time, they get to do that during the season anyway, if they take another visit, whatever. So it's still cool anyway to have it on a Thursday, and for kids to come down there, see it, the atmosphere. It's not as crazy for them, I guess, so they can see more. But overall, like, I think maybe later on down the road, if you can find a Saturday, like if you want the recruiting advantage or whatever, find a Saturday that nobody's using if you can. I mean, it's not going to hurt anything,
Sure.
I thought about that too, because if you do go, if Florida would have went the Saturday before, Auburn would have been the only competition. And you can handle that just fine.
Sure.
So I do think even that Saturday would have been a possibility. Don't get me wrong, the weather was awful, so maybe worked out better anyway. But still, that Saturday would have been available. Auburn was the only school in the SEC. We're not really sharing too many recruiting battles with Auburn right now anyway. So, maybe you hold it a Saturday earlier than maybe everybody else does, or maybe even push it to, a Saturday later. Maybe it could have been this Saturday or something like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Hey, guys, we got over 200 people in the chat. Make sure you guys show some love. Drop a like, subscribe if you're new here. Happy to see you some new faces in here, so welcome to the show. Let's dive into portal news. You guys are chomping at the bits in the comments. I hear you. We see you about portal news. What's going on? So Ethan White, news came out today that he did not transfer to USC, which was big. That seems kind of a little late to now make that announcement. But from what we're hearing, my understanding is he's still not in communication with Florida, and as of now, there is no desire for him to come back. Just didn't work out for USC, so it's just another name floating around in the hat. Look, could be looking into it too much, but I know when that name left, there was a lot of panic. Now, again, he's having it seems like he may be having a hard time finding a home. I don't know. But a lot of the guys that left Florida didn't really leave Florida and go find these like nice fancy jobs. So a lot of the critique of, well, Billy can't coach, nobody wants to coach with him. It's not like these guys aren't leaving going to Alabama to start, right? They're going to these smaller end schools. So, Swolder, any thoughts on that? Any takeaways on where he could possibly end up, or is it kind of just hushed right now from your end?
From what I know, I have no clue on where he could wind up, or I personally don't think it's Florida. I don't think he's coming back. I knew that there was personal reasons. I don't know the personal reasons. I don't need to. It's none of my business. But as far as I know, he's just, like he said, floating around in the portal. I don't know his next destination or his move. Dave might know more and be able to elaborate, but you got me stumped on Ethan White and what happened there. So.
As far as I got, nothing, but maybe this is more personal than anything to do with football. And I did see in the chat people were saying that he couldn't cut it at USC. Guys, he never even made it to USC. He wasn't supposed to enroll. He wasn't supposed to enroll till after spring. He didn't go through spring practice or anything at USC. So it's not like he couldn't cut it. No, it does seem like there's some personal things going on that Ethan White's got to get figured out. Maybe that comes before football, and then maybe we get more inclination about what his next step is, as far as maybe either continuing his career wherever he continues his career. But right now, it has nothing to do with not being able or not being good enough for USC. It's this probably got some things to figure out.
For sure. Now, as for what we're going after, right now, Josh Simmons is our top priority target who has set a visit for May 5th. That's the only noise we have right now. Mind you, it's only been open for a few days, so some more things could go into place. Obviously, offensive line is going to be a big point of emphasis for the Gators, and we're going to talk about recruiting a little bit later on. That obviously big for offensive linemen as well. But the other question, big question mark, and Gator Dave threw out a little curveball the past a few days ago about the quarterback room and the noise of old Grayson McCall coming out of Coastal Carolina. 3 months ago, he wasn't qualifiable, and now everyone thinks 3 months later he went and all of a sudden just became a rocket scientist and got his stuff figured out. I don't know. But you, Dave, I'm passing it over to you because you stirred up the Twitter sphere. So we're going to let you settle the debate right now on what was that all about.
All right, so it didn't come from me. So I'm on the Bill King show up in Nashville. Bill has a national college football show. So I'm on there every Tuesday morning, and he has a caller who's very involved with Bill's show. And Bill knows him well. He's very connected in that Coastal Carolina community. So he says around the community, there's talk of McCall still transferring, and that Florida is the school that's being named around those parts. So it's coming from that end. It's not coming from the Florida end. It's not coming from any connections of Florida. This is, Bill's been connected in college football diehard since the 80s. And so, Bill trusts him. But not to say, even this was stressed on the show. Hey, this is the rumor that's coming out from the Coastal Carolina area. So, I just shared, that was my hit of me being asked if I knew anything about it. I said, that would be news to me. As far as Grayson McCall and any kind of Florida connection, yes, that name was brought up. We heard about the grades or credits or whatever it was that he couldn't get in the first portal go around. So then I was asked, hey, have you been hearing what we're hearing up in the Coastal Carolina area? And I said, nope, that would be news to me as well. So, I just shared that soundbite, maybe even put it out there because somebody was going to listen to it. If I didn't put it out, somebody else was going to put it out. So I might as well should have got in front of it anyway. But as far as I know, I don't think it happened either. Whether it still be the grade things, whether Florida staff not really that big of a fan of him anyway, as far as fitting in the offense, I don't think it'll happen. Of Grayson McCall, even if he does put his name in the transfer portal again, still maybe look out for Auburn as the destination if he puts his name in the portal. But I do not expect him to end up in Florida.
That's a good point. We keep thinking that Grayson McCall, if he becomes available, Billy's just gonna be rushing up there to bring him in. But it's like guys, just because we're screaming for him doesn't mean we want him. And then my next question to you, Dave, is look, after seeing the two performances from Miller, I guess 3, Max and Heismertz, would you want Grayson McCall? Is that something that you would be interested in as a fan and as somebody who watches this closely, or do you feel that Florida fans are a little bit overreacting in the sense of like, hey, we have to go out there and get a quarterback? I think we all can agree that we need depth, but is there room for another guy like Grayson McCall? Because you got Mertz who thought, hey, look, he understands he's going to earn the position, but if you bring that in, will Miller stay if that happens? There's a lot of what ifs there.
Yeah, I'll never turn down competition. And especially since it's not a for sure thing that Mertz or Miller can go out there and lead Florida to 9-10 wins. I mean, Don't get me wrong. That's the very, very top end of what we're talking about here. But no, I don't turn away competition. So if he passes what the staff wants and they think he can be a contributor, then okay. I'd be all aboard with it. I wouldn't turn down competition.
Swatter?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. If you can find a really, really good quarterback in the portal, you're going to take him anyway. Sure. Like you said, competition, right? And even if you want to roll Mertz out there to start, say he's been in the system and he was going to be your projected starter in the spring, or you think that he's going to be the starter for the season, go ahead. Put him out there. If he struggles, then you have somebody else of quality behind him that can come in and play. If he beats out, obviously, Max Brown and Jack Miller. But I'm not opposed to getting another quarterback. I know he alluded to it as well. And then you still don't even know what Austin Simmons is going to do there with reclassifying or being in the 2025 class. So you also got that factor.
You need to chill, Swolder.
Hey, well,
Swolder, we got a little beat there when we were on the field. We just heard a little noise. I don't know how much we can really say about this, but there was I guess some winks and some nudge and some elbows, some possible.
We don't have to hide behind that anymore. Everybody's talking about it.
Yeah.
We're good.
Apparently somebody rubbed elbows with Austin Simmons' dad. That's where the came through, and I guess he was looking around doing some hunting. It seemed that the hunting was a little bit sooner, than it needed to be. It's kind of what the noise is coming from. So it looks like it could be happening. We'll see. Well, obviously, we know the guy's a rocket scientist. He's already graduated high school 3 times over, so we will see how that plays out. But it is very interesting. Real quick, super chat from Between the Hedges says, "Why are you guys trying to steal our backup quarterback?" We're gonna get into that Between the Hedges about Brock Vandergriff. So we're gonna talk about that a little bit later on. But again, love it.
Okay, but it doesn't even matter. He's an SEC quarterback. He couldn't play this year for Florida if he wanted to.
Exactly.
There you go.
Can't transfer in the conference and play. You have to sit out a year.
Gator Dave dropping knowledge. You guys sit back. Q Lee says, "Please, God bless us with McCall." I love this. Chat's incredible. You guys are on a burner today. I can't even keep up.
I see some that's Gators Breakdown watchers too. So I'm glad everybody made it over here. Yeah.
There's some new faces that I've never seen before. So glad to see that they're coming over and hanging out with us. Hopefully our chat doesn't scare them off. It can be a bit aggressive at times.
Yeah, they can.
Let's talk about recruiting. I know you got a few more minutes, Dave, so I appreciate you again, man, hopping on. I know you got you're busy, but last thing we have is recruiting news. Obviously, we landed a 5-star recruit on Thursday during the spring game, which was huge. And it was a lot of us anticipated it. Swolder had his glasses on come Wednesday night. We kind of heard the buzz going on. There was also a lot of buzz on more commits happening throughout the weekend. I think all of us were like, "Yep, keep waiting. There's more," and nothing happened. Very interesting. But I will say, I wouldn't look at it as a negative. Could be more of a long play, right? And I think we noticed this during the summer last year where Billy has played this long, play in recruiting where he lets it kind of trickle along. So we stay in the news. We stay in front of you. We know that if you see what South Carolina and Miami did, they look really hot right now. They landed a few players, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on, but they're landing a lot kind of all at once. And come summertime, we may not hear about South Carolina anymore. And when you're trying to land those big recruits, could that have an impact? Could that matter? I don't know. There's no right or wrong answer, but I definitely think there's a positive in being in the news once every other week versus just having a lot of good news within a matter of 3 days. So let's talk about Xavier really quick, and then we'll go into some other big names that we're eyeing, looking at. So Xavier, obviously 5-star recruit, gave us a nice, massive bump. Dave, what was your thoughts on that pickup, and how did you like the fact that we got it during the spring game?
That was good. That was the one that probably needed to happen during the spring game because that was the one everybody had been kind of forecasting and previewing that, hey, this is one that's probably going to happen sometime soon, probably around the spring game, and it happens halftime of the spring game. And I tell you what, I've been hard-pressed to be impressed with film that I've seen lately, or at least highlights. I don't necessarily want to call it film because if you watch a huddle, it's supposed to be highlights. It's supposed to be good. So
it's all all the good stuff.
Yeah, right. It's all the good stuff. But hey, Xavier Fasami has a lot of good stuff when you watch the huddles highlights. I mean, so to be able to make that transition from receiver to safety and have that kind of, I say, instinct and playmaking ability right away, that kind of speaks to me, the kind of athlete that he can be. So he said it was difficult at first, but man, he just really learned and used his experience on the offensive side of the ball and applied that to the defensive side of the ball. And I mean, ended up with like 90 tackles last season. And I just think very reactive. I love a safety that is not afraid to get dirty, that is not afraid to hit. And that's exactly what Xavier brings to the table. So I was and very reactive. And so he puts his foot in the dirt and he's coming at you. So I was a big fan of, the type of tenacity that he plays with. And I was really, really excited that one that, and look, he was thought to be a Georgia lean early on as well. I'd maybe had even chalked him up to Georgia early on, but he got come on campus to Florida. The staff really impressed him and just kind of, really impressed him so much where he kind of wanted to make a decision just a couple of months after being on campus for the first time. So big pickup for the Gators at a big position of need there at the safety spot where Florida's really struggled at that position the last few years.
A big pickup from a big school, a big high school. And again, that 5th star, and this is where we talk about 4 and 5 stars and what they mean. I see you guys talking about the Arch Manning in the comments as well, who was the number 1 overall recruit, 5-star. Didn't look so hot in the spring game. Got a lot of criticism. And I defended him a little bit. But I think that 5th star means, hey, you should be able to come in and be pretty close to college football ready. I think Xavier, again, in his highlights, shows that ability of look, he could probably come in right away and be impactful pretty early on. The linebacker from LSU, Harold Perkins, is somebody that I always think of. Again, he came in as a freshman and was impactful 5-star guy, was able to slide right in, didn't need much time to develop or learn that position because, again, that's where those 5 stars really matter, is how quickly they can have an impact. And watching the film, right, from Huddle, Xavier gave me those vibes of somebody who could come in and be a threat right away. I think even you could see some of our guys this past weekend at the spring game, there was guys that were like, yeah, they're going to be a threat right away. But then also time, like, he's going to be really good. There was a lot of flashes, needs some more time. But we expected that. 3 and 4 stars, lower end 4 stars. Hey, they've got what it takes. A few more reps under the belt, a couple more weekends with old Billy Gonzalez, and the boys will be humming. So big time recruit. Really happy that he did it in front of all the recruits, which was really cool during halftime. I think that was massive. And again, this is where having those games and have those moments, we got all the lights on us, which I liked, and we mentioned earlier. Hey, maybe down the road we don't need to do those things. But right now, in an early stage for Billy Napier's career, I think those things are important. Swolder?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can beat Georgia or Alabama or one of the blue bloods in recruiting, like at the Ohio States and all that, for a recruit, that's one hell of a haul right there. But especially when it's a 5-star recruit and an elite recruit that every school is after. So you stick a feather in the cap to Billy Napier and the staff for pulling somebody away from Georgia, one of your rivals in the SEC East. And on top of that, I mean, this position's been thin for a while. I mean, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson left. You couldn't really find any good safety play after that. Now you're starting to stack safeties, and we're up for some more safeties here down the road, especially in recruiting. So anytime that you can get a 5-star in general from a rival like that, but a 5-star at a position of need and heavy need is even better. And it's a big feather in the cap for Armstrong too. I mean,
yes,
he just comes into the campus and pulls a 5-star. So, I mean, that's of course, Corey Raymond as well, but still, I mean, you got to give him credit for that. Exactly.
Gator Dave, I know you had to go. Are you still got a few more minutes, or you want to go ahead and we'll?
Yeah, we can do the wide receivers next. Is that where we're going?
Yeah. I was going to go into Terrence Moore. Obviously, he's somebody that we're eyeing right now. Jeremiah Smith, the noise has seemed to trickle away a little bit, but Terrence Moore is making some noise. Was it Michael Turner? Was that the other wide receiver that got some noises just today as well? The reason why we wanted to mention those names, but I also wanted to bring it up because with all the exciting news, right, we've done a phenomenal job on the defense side of recruiting, I think, thus far, with linebackers and now obviously the safety, and there's obviously a lot of crystal balls for other safeties as well. But in running back room, it looks extremely healthy. A lot of noise from more running backs, possibly one more running back, which we're going to get into in here just a bit. But not much on the wide receiver core. Now, a lot of guys there from the past class, which is great. But with somebody like DJ Lagway at the helm, I would imagine we would have one by now. Is it time? Is it a little too soon to panic, or is there a little question mark of what's happening? What are we missing here? I'll let go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, it's April, so it is too early to panic. But yeah, TJ Moore, look, I think that one's setting up pretty nice for Florida right now. Tampa Catholic, kind of all around wide receiver. Yeah, I do think he. If I was making a prediction, he ends up a Gator right now.
Okay.
So yeah, he's
6'4", 190. By the way, boys, that's a big boy right there. It's a big pull.
Caught 40 passes for about 1,000 yards last year too. So in a really good classification in Florida, plays top tier competition there. But also and I'll throw it out there too. Mario Craver from Alabama, another 4-star, 5'11", 160 range from Pinson, Alabama. He's that speed, quick twitch, able to change directions type of receiver. I think there was some question if he'd be a take for this Gator staff, but from what I could gather in the last day or so, he'd be a take now for the staff. So another 4-star, one more as well. So 2 4-stars that I think Florida's sitting in really, really good shape for right now. And you mentioned Michael Turner, another speedster type in that 6 foot 170 range, but he's from Louisiana. He would be out of state, but ran a 10.59 and 100 meter. So you can really tell where Florida's targeting right now, and maybe where they even feel good right now. They're looking at the speedster type of wide receivers, the quick twitch, get the ball in their hands, and they can make something happen type of receivers. But then also, I don't shy away from the big fish yet. I do think Jeremiah Smith You keep checking in on him, of course. Ohio State, I agree, it'd be a hard pull, but you keep checking in on him. And also, I know Nitro Tuggle is committed to Georgia, recently commit to them as well. From everything I can tell, that one's not going to be over. Florida's going to keep constant communication and hope that constant communication pays off in the end.
With the nickname like Turbo, I feel like it's a must land. Man. Yeah, look, great take. I mean, obviously it is too early to panic. I would like to get one, right, to represent the position. I think to have a three-headed monster. We've got the running back core, Xavier being kind of the quarterback, in my opinion, as of now. On the defensive side, you've got a big star on that side. Would be great. Colin Simmons is another big name that has been surfacing around. That would be huge as well to kind of recruit the trenches, in my opinion. I just would like one wide receiver to really kind of start that domino to start falling is what I was prefacing towards. Let's move on to real quick, because again, I know you got to go here shortly, is Stacey Gage. Stacey Gage was there this past weekend. Somebody that we've always had an eye on. I talked to DJ about it when DJ was announcing where he would go. I mentioned Stacey, said, hey, where you going, big bro? I'm following with you. Now, that's just a Twitter community. That's obviously you see a lot of guys say that, right? Jeremiah Smith did it too, and then committed to Ohio State. So a lot of it's always talk, but Stacey Gage has always shown a lot of love to Florida. And why wouldn't he? I mean, obviously, it's a business both ways. You don't want to burn a school because you don't know exactly what options are always going to stay out there. But when asked, like, hey, there's 2 already there, are you okay with being 3? He goes, yeah, not a problem. I like competition, which I like that. I like seeing that. Again, there was talk of why would we go for 3? 2 is pretty healthy. And the future of Montreal Johnson is going to be huge on that. If he chooses to leave, that running back room thins out pretty quickly, right? With that, I think we're in good hands with Trevor and with Treyon Webb. But again, with him leaving, we still have a gap where we haven't truly filled it in with last year and not getting 2 running backs. So it's got to make up for somewhere. Cam Carroll, in my opinion, doesn't really fill that gap. Again, he's a 1-year guy. So, Swatter, I'll go to you, man. What's your thoughts on the running back room and with Stacey Gage?
I'm personally, if just watching the film on Stacey Gage, I'm not saying that he's a bad player. I just would rather take another. If we were going to take another running back, I would rather it be somebody besides him. But I like where we're sitting right now with Kanan Daniels and the other guy that's obviously Chauncey Bowens that's in the class. I like where we're sitting at now at running back, but I mean, I haven't even no clue if they're going to go after one in the portal. You don't know. I doubt they will. I'm pretty sure they're going to stick to high school because they already got their roster filled for this year. But as far as running back, I'm okay with where Florida sits now, just having those 2 guys in here. But if they were to take a third one, I would probably want somebody else, but that's just me being picky, watching film and all that other kind of stuff. But Stacey Gage still, obviously a top 200 guy. St. Thomas Aquinas, you want him in that class. Still, I mean, they value him as a quality running back. He wouldn't be ranked so high. But I know just looking at some of the prospects just this year, I would rather take some other running back that's either ranked higher or a little bit faster. But that's just my opinion.
Dave?
Yeah, I think Florida's going to be very, very picky for that third back. When I was told when of course, Chauncey Bowens in the class, Kanan Daniels in the class, and once Daniels committed, I was told Florida's fine with just 2, unless you get really picky and somehow you end up getting Jarrett Gibson in the class. That would be the third. Of course, the top running back in the country. No, you're not turning him down. But look, Chauncey Bowens is at the top of the board for Florida. Sure. They already got him in the class. They love that kid. And it doesn't matter who is ranked number 1, 2, 3, 4. The staff has him very high. The staff loves what he brings to the table. So the staff in their mind already has one of the top running backs in the country. So that's why they're okay with the 2 they already have. But if Jarrett Gibson wants in the class, I was told that would be one of the few choices they'd make it out for 3. They would love to stick at 2, stay at 2, but you get Gibson in this class, you'll take 3 running backs. So, but Gage, of course, I think there'd be some interest there. You maybe keep the plate warm if the worst happens, and you maybe get a decommitment down the road. And I don't expect that to happen for Billy Napier and this staff. But if it did, you keep the plate warm, keep the lines open with somebody else.
Wonderful. Well, look, that's kind of all we have in recruiting. Dave, do you want to go on to Victorious, or do you got to head out, man? I know, again, I keep dragging you along. I do appreciate you getting, man, hopping on here. So You let me know.
All good. I got to go. My daughter wants. I got to go tuck my daughter in bed. So
yep,
that duty calls.
I respect it. Well, hey, let everybody know. I mean, everyone knows who Gator Dave is, but how they can follow you and where they can watch and when they can watch, man.
Yeah, Gators Breakdown. You can follow me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. You can find me newsforjacks.com/Gators Breakdown. Podcast platform, YouTube as well. But yeah, Shelton, Dave, thanks for having me. Glad to be on here.
Thank you, man.
I'll return definitely. We'll turn it back around and get you guys on Gators Breakdown sometime soon.
Absolutely, man. We'll love to come on, man. But again, appreciate you. And off to dad duties you go, man. Go Gators. Go.
All right, sounds good. Go Gators.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Dave.
I see you guys in the comments here. Steve, you can hop on, man, whenever you're ready to rock and roll here. But I see you guys talk about Sammy Brown, the linebacker. What I would give for old Sammy Brown, bro. That boy's a stud. But let's talk about Victorious. There was a presser meeting, webinar this Monday. Was it Monday, I believe, Dave?
Yeah, there was a webinar this Monday. It was at 6:00.
6:00. Dave, what was your takeaways from that, man? I didn't have a chance to look at all of it just yet. It's been a busy week for me as it is tax week. I work in taxes outside of being your beautiful podcast host. But how did it go? What was your thoughts? Are you excited about it compared to the collective? How much of it has changed? What's your thoughts?
Well, I was always a big supporter of the collective, still am. I mean, you pretty much you retain some of the people from the collective. You bring them over to Florida Victorious, and just being in that webinar, I guess they were more informative about everything that was going on. They were taking questions, and you got to learn a lot more about the Florida Victorious. Of course, Nate Barbera, the CEO there, and then obviously the owner, Jose Costa. But it was just, you got more info, I guess, more than what you would get, previously, out of the collective. And that's not a shy away at the collective or anything like that, because sometimes they just didn't want to disclose a lot of things, which is fine, because you got to be on your toes, man. You can't let your opponents find out what's going on. And I got to have a lot of praise for Eddie Rojas, though, too. And I know I wrote an article on him. He had vision. He started it. And now it's grown to what it is now. And he obviously sold that to Jose Costa. And Billy Napier had a good recruiting speech there, too, as well, that I posted there on Twitter. And it was just I had more of a better feel about this. You know how you just get that feeling about something and you're just like, man, this is so much better. Just the advisory board that they have, along with the obviously the guys that they hired there, it just seems more organized, more detailed. More transitional. I mean, when you go to the side, it'll tell you 90% plus the proceeds go to the players. And I know a lot of people were worried about that. Oh, why don't they disclose this? Why don't they disclose that? Finally, they're disclosing it. And they just seem to correct some of the issues that maybe the Gator Collective had. I never really thought that they had any issues, because they signed over 200 players when they were at the Gator Collective. And you hear those comments about, oh, well, what happened with the Rashada situation? Look, if the collective was messed up so much, we would have never landed DJ Lagway or Austin Simmons. So, I mean, you guys got to, all those opponents out there that want to say, oh, you guys missed out. I already know about that whole situation anyway, so it wasn't even really like that. But, man, yeah, I took away a lot from it, though. I think a lot of people should listen to it. It is a public, I was told I could share it. So if anybody hasn't seen it, it was a public webinar. Hit me up on the DMs. I can send you the sound file so you can listen to it in your car, or I can send you the video file that they posted there on Circle. I think they posted it on YouTube as well. So you can pretty much just DM me and I'll send you the links to it.
Yeah, I think something to note about it. What's up, Steve? With Victorious and how it's all handed over. Again, Eddie Rojas, I know a lot of you guys kind of get in here and get a little rowdy and have your opinions about the situation, but Eddie Rojas did exactly what he was supposed to do. If I can compare it to a situation, I'm not saying he's Steve Jobs, but think about Apple and how it started. You had Steve Jobs, the innovator, the big brain who thought about everything. Once Apple got going, they had a whole crew of, a board that was hired. And Steve Jobs got pushed out because of this board didn't like the way that he was acting. They realized they were lost without him because he was a visionary, but it needs a board. It needs those guys. It needs the guys in suits. Eddie Rojas is not a guy in suit. Okay, simple as fact. But what Eddie did without that mindset, right? And without that ambition, we wouldn't have what the collective or the Victorious wouldn't be as far as it is now. The guys in suits run these kind of things. They don't start these kinds of things. So it got to the point where it was too big, right, for Eddie to run it. And then the suits had to come in. Barstool's the same way. El Presidente, Dave Portnoy. Barstool does not exist without that kind of personality, without El Presidente. This show, High Top, does not exist without my crazy and Steve's crazy ass coming out here and just being complete buffoons, right? We had to bring Swolderquist in as our suit to level us out a little bit, right?
Just to ground us a little bit.
You got to have the grounds, right? So all these things that the personalities work, and that's how it all worked out. I think it was a hell of a transition. Obviously, too, with politics involved, I kind of mentioned it earlier, the collective didn't have really any branding from Florida or any love, which didn't help the collective in growing. Victorious was everywhere when I walked into the swamp. Couldn't believe it. And so politically, right, could it be the fact that, hey, we're not going to work with Eddie because he's crazy? Maybe. I don't know, right? But Victorious has the suits. We can work with these guys. These guys are, they have a track record of being, just straight edge, right? Don't have to worry about them.
And I'll say this, Eddie's a nice guy. When it comes down to it, he's a really nice guy. He's never done anything remotely bad. He's never, I mean, you hear about the stuff going on with John Ruiz. He's never done anything like that. So at least he had his head on straight there. But he's even admitted it to me over the phone when I've talked to him. He's a super fan. I mean, he loves the Florida Gators. And I think sometimes, your super fanness can get the best of you. And maybe it did in that certain situation. And, as I said, when you're the first to start something, because Gator Collective was the first collective out there when NIL started. When you're the first to start something, you're the first to also reap the mistakes, and other people can watch you make those mistakes and say, okay, well, when we start our collective, we need to watch out for this, and we need to watch out for that. That goes with any company that you start. When you start a company, there's going to be something that happens. That there's going to be mistakes. I mean, you're going to have to work on whatever that you got to work on to get it straight. And he did for the most part.
We hired Steve. Look, that's our mistake.
Hired every week, and then everything was fine. But yeah, just for him having that vision and getting it started and laying down the foundation. I mean, you got to have your hats off to him, man. And Eddie, he hired the right people, and you got to give him credit for that too.
He put the right people around him. That's another important thing that people don't forget. It's like, look, Jen did a phenomenal job. Jen's a grinder. So
yeah, and they retained her, which I'm happy for, and they also retained Alan for the website as well. But yeah, like it's not like he hired somebody like John.
Alan's
Ruiz
still there.
It, so.
Good. Yeah, no, look,
that's
another
a big benefit that I think Florida had from having their game on Thursday is obviously it attracted a lot of eyes. It was the only show on, right? So, it was going to bring people to watch because, look, we've all missed football so much, whether you hate the Gators, love the Gators, or just don't really give a damn. You were going to turn that on just to see,
football.
What they looked like. But the other part of it is it felt like the collective or Gator Victorious or whatever they're officially called now, the Gator NIL, it felt like they officially sponsored the damn thing. There was signage everywhere, the electronic signs. It was discussed. It sounded, if I remember correctly, somebody from the NIL, the Gator Victorious, they actually had an interview spot with Billy during the game. So they obviously had an in route. But look, I mean, talk about being on Thursday and getting yourself, to the top of the list of being in front of eyes, but then also Gator Victorious took the opportunity knowing that opportunity was there and put themselves everywhere. So from somebody on the outside looking in, obviously I know that there's been a transition because I talked to you guys quite a bit. For a lot of the other college football world that hasn't been keeping up with this, it put it right in their face.
Yeah, good stuff. I loved it. It was interesting for you to see it as well, Steve, again, because you're not really looking for it, but it was in your face in a good, healthy way. So I like the transition. I'm excited about it. I think it's great. And again, very smooth. Very smooth from a website perspective, very smooth from an account perspective. I mean, nothing really you really didn't feel it too much outside of all but good things. Real quick, though, we've got over 250 people in here, which is incredible on Wednesday in April. We love it. Love you guys. But only 88 likes. That upsets me. What's up? Show some love. Bro, I got a porn stash for the ages. That alone gets like 15 likes.
Have we discussed this in the cast?
We haven't.
Has that come up?
We haven't. Both Daves are very, they're very respectful. They're not going to come out my throat like you would, Steve. So I've got to go an hour without having any criticism. The chats were a little buck wild, a little bit. But
Oh.
what's your thoughts, Steve?
You have a wife and a child. What are you doing?
So look, so first
Get
of
it
all,
together, Sheldon.
so the wife
did
was.
you highlight that with like mascara? Did you take your wife's makeup
This
to
is
make that
natural.
thing that color?
When I shave
I
off
don't
the
believe
beard,
you.
it naturally turns black.
When you shave off the ginger beard, the mustache immediately goes dark
Naturally.
black and brown.
Naturally.
Okay.
You're a younger Armstrong, Sheldon. I'll take it. The wife wasn't a fan. Typically, she's okay with my crazy changes. This was the one time she was adamant about it. She's like, no, I like your beard. But Austin says, dude could see my girlfriend with that stash. That's what I'm saying. It's phenomenal. It's boys' weekend. It's a bachelor party weekend. My boy's getting married.
Oh, boy.
It's one time only, and they're all rocking a dirty stash. Besides one guy, he's being a twat about it. But we're not going to get into that.
You look a lot more distinguished.
That just means you stand out in a crowd.
Yeah, what the hell? I don't know what the hell.
Dumbass.
Quit using big words, Dave. I don't know what the hell that means. So we had to do the stash. So I looked at her and I go, babe, this is one time. I can't show up, and I'm the fun guy. I can't show up and not have a stash. That would be completely disrespectful to the group. I would ruin the entire weekend. I can't do that. And I would hate to look back on photos from that weekend and everyone has a dirty stash. And my son goes, Dad, why do you look normal? And I'm like, you're right. I'm a piece of shit. So there you go. Okay. You're welcome. So for anybody that's questioning whether or not they should send it, whatever, if you're able to look back in history, be like, yo, that was a dirty stash. Rocking the dad stash, or you have an opportunity to kind of send it. Okay. Life's short. There's your motivation for the weekend, boys. Sit on that one and smoke it.
The John Oates look. That's amazing, Ed DePriest. They got the John Oates going on.
Let's move along from Gator talk. We've got a lot of college football talk, though. Some noise is happening. Some rumblings are going on. I hate it for Georgia. Dylan Raiola, we've been talking about him. He's the number one quarterback in the country. He's the new arch. It has been like it's a keep of the Kardashians. He's going to Nebraska. He's crystal ball to USC. He's crystal ball to Georgia. Well, I've said he's got to commit soon. He has to. With being a number one quarterback, we've talked about the importance of having a quarterback commit early. And DJ Lagway just got some love from Simmons on On3 on being the number one recruiter this year thus far for 2024. Because I said he has been a beast at recruiting and being on the ball. So I think other guys are seeing this. So Dylan Raiola, the noise is he's going to be committing soon, and it looks like Georgia. The other name is Ryan Wingo, I believe, the number one wide receiver, 5-star, or he's not number one, Jeremiah is, a top 5-star wide receiver who was heavily committed to Tennessee. And I thought Colorado was going to have a chance to flip it, is now leaning heavily towards Georgia. And so it seems kind of too good to be true on all this happening at the same time, which leads me to my third and final part of Brock Vandagriff, who literally 3 minutes before the show came out, I guess, and said, I'm staying at Georgia, but, and it's a big but, if these two things happen with the Raiola and Wingo, Brock's got to be looking like, this isn't a place for me, right? I know it's a lot to take in, digest what I just went over there, but.
Yeah. In that situation, you've got a lot of quarterbacks on your roster with 4 years of eligibility left.
Lot.
So I would expect one of those quarterbacks to go if you get Dylan Raiola from, I guess, said class. But now with, well, like you said, with what's his name, Wingo or Wing?
Ryan Wingo, I think in Hurricane
Ryan
he's
Wingo.
number two wide receiver.
Yeah, it is kind of suspicious that he would be crystal ball to Georgia right as Dylan Raiola is. So they maybe been talking to each other. Who knows? I'm not going to be a conspiracy theorist when it comes to that. But yeah, I mean, you've got 4 quarterbacks on your roster with 4 years of eligibility. Somebody's leaving. And I don't care what they tweet out and say, oh, well, I'm still sticking with Georgia. Yeah, we'll see what happens when Dylan Raiola commits and eventually signs. I mean, he may be sticking with them this year and seeing if he does commit, if he actually sticks through with that commitment. And if he does, then maybe next year he's in the portal.
And so Wingo has been crystal ball. So he's a 4-star composite on 247, fourth wide receiver. But again, he's been Wilfonged to Georgia now. And I want to remind you, when Dylan Raiola committed to Ohio State, shortly after, Jeremiah Smith committed to Ohio State. Don't forget, it was very, I don't know how shortly after, but it seemed to correlate. Well, he's committed to Ohio State. Ohio State has withdrew their offer, so that relationship is no more, right? So now what does he go do? Okay, I'm going to go here, and I'm going to take the second wide receiver with me. That's what I'm trying to figure out. And that could be why he was trying to negotiate this all around. It's like, hey, I'm not going to go here with nobody. Not that Georgia's going to have a hard time recruiting anybody. They just got Turbo as well, and that could help maybe Turbo flipping as well. But again, a lot of what ifs. But both of these guys being crystal ball to Georgia, like you said, a lot of talent. A lot of talent. There's no, with how things are, no way they stay. But a good point to what Dave said before he hopped off, he transitions in the SEC, he's got to sit out for a year. Now, would he leave and start somewhere now anyways? I don't know. So how big of a deal is that? We'll see. But again, literally I had this all queued up, and then literally 3 minutes before the show, a little blurb dropped that he came out and said, I'm committed. But Dylan hasn't committed yet. Steve?
I mean, we talked about USC potentially building just a monster out there on the West Coast with the coaching staff and then the talent that they have available in that state. And I'm just not. I don't think I'm ready to wrap my head around Dylan Raiola going to Georgia. I know that there's a possibility of it. I just don't know if I'm ready to stomach it. It doesn't feel right. I don't like it one bit. Look, how do you have 17 freshman quarterback on your roster? Like, what are they going to do with all these guys? It's the one position you can only get one on the field at a time. Carson Beck looks to be pulling away pretty significantly from some of the other guys in the quarterback room. But I mean, Dylan Raiola comes in, the other two have to bail. I mean, they can't sit there for their entire college career. Hoping that you get 2 ACL tears or something just to get on the field. So I don't know, man. That just feels like it's just an exodus on the verge of happening. But Dylan Raiola just scares the hell out of me at Georgia. Now, the one thing I will say, and I think I'll steal this from Uncle Lou, it takes 4 or 5 years for a quarterback to ever be good at Georgia. Every other position they could be instant plug and play straight out of high school. Running back, wide receiver, linebackers, defensive line. They come out of high school. It feels like they get a burn from the first year. They get playing time, but you got to be like a 26-year-old man to play quarterback in Georgia. The light just never seems to really turn on for those guys, at least quickly.
They seem to have a formula there that works.
Yeah, it's working. Let's not take anything away from them, but I'm not looking for a quarterback who's got an AARP card from the time that he walks on campus either. So I just don't like the concept at all of Raiola going to Athens. Though.
It's just too much talent in one place. Yeah, it'll be an interesting development. We will be obviously keeping tabs on it, and if it does break, we'll talk about it. So make sure you guys like, subscribe, turn the bell on, so you guys can be here when we do talk about that, because that's a big one. Number one quarterback, number one recruit in the country. College official visits. This broke last week, I believe, but it was a busy last week. They have lifted the threshold of 5 official visits, and now it's unlimited. Steve had a rant about this with him being old-fashioned of why he didn't like it. So I'll let you go first, Steve, and then we'll spread it out between the two of us.
Well, look, I mean, we've seen the NIL game somewhat just completely change the landscape of college football as a whole. We're all learning. We're all trying to figure out how it works, what it does, what it can't do, what's right, what's wrong, what goes against the rules. Obviously, Florida's going through some transition. They're learning some of the ropes as well. But now we're going to go to a situation where money has just been injected into the sport, basically taking its amateurship away. And now we've got these kids coming out of high school who typically in the old recruiting model could only take 5 official visits, where you're essentially treated like a rock star. That limit has been lifted. So the old school days of these kids coming out and saying my top 5 schools are X, with the intent that those are the 5 schools that they will make official visits to. The 5, like my top 5 is officially gone. If you are a high school recruit and you give your top 5 out, you are an idiot, because you have eliminated every other school from potentially bringing you in for your rockstar visit, because there is no limit any longer. I would be releasing my top 20 consistently every week, and it would rotate teams in and out of there, just hoping that somebody was dumb enough to throw my fat ass on a plane and fly me to another state on a regular basis, and just keep doing it over and over and over again, because damn it, I like steak and lobster. And that would be my strategy going into my personal recruiting. It feels like it's just money is just coming out of everywhere and just putting these kids on planes, flying them all over the place. if I was a high school recruit, man, I'd be jumping up and down over this. I'm not gonna lie.
Look, I don't hate it. I think it puts kind of it back into the kids' court, right? And that kind of strangle holding them and making them having to decide between 5 schools. I think it's not going to be as wild west as we're imagining it will be, because I think it's also schools are going to notice that. I also think that the official visits are getting very there's a gray line, and there isn't much of a difference. If I had to say so myself, I think, again, we've talked about what's the difference. Official visit, the schools pay for it. They take care of everything. They roll the red carpet out, and just a regular visit, the student pays for it himself, and he doesn't get the special treatments, and he doesn't see certain things. But again, how much of that's actually being regulated? I think we can all say that the NCAA doesn't care or really regulate that. It's like, hey, we have a lot to go over now with the NIL and a lot of things that we have to keep our eye on. I'm not going to worry about whether or not this kid's getting an official visit or non-official visit, because the line is so thin. It's so thin, and I feel like again, I see what you're saying from perspective of top 5. I don't think that goes away, because we have a top 12, top 7, top 3. I never looked at that and go, wow, those are where his official visits are going to be now. You know what I mean? So we'll see. Look, it was interesting, though, because Jarrett Gibson had 5 official visits originally, and he filled that 5th spot with Miami. So then that does let everybody else know, well, like, there's no way he goes to Florida now, right? Well, he's visited Florida 19 times. They just weren't official. So how much of a difference is that visit, right? Is he not paying for an official visit to Gainesville because he lives 5 minutes from there, so he doesn't need to pay? And the difference between an official and non-official aren't that different. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's that big of a deal, I think. And that's probably why it didn't seem to really get much noise. But I know you were upset about it. And I think kind of that old mentality, right, being a long-time college football fan. And it could be the fact we've had so many changes over this past 2 years that at this point, like, they literally just say anything. They're like, whatever, just add it to the list. Just what's one more thing? Dave?
It's about right.
All the college schools better be ready to pony up some money for all that catering that's going to be going on when that happens. So, I memean, it's crazy that just the scenarios you could think of. Think about, like, if you're recruiting, just say you're going after a kid, right? And, you have them on an official visit, and then you have them on one more official visit, and then you're waiting for them to take an unofficial, and they're like, no, we have unlimited. Why won't they give me an official? Why won't they give me an official? Those kids could say that. I mean, because it's unlimited, right? So they're like, oh, well, this school probably doesn't like me that much because they're not giving me an official. They're making me visit on my own dime.
Yeah, that's my point. Is I think it's going to flip the other way to where, look, it's not going to be as wild west as you think, because you think the schools now are going to be like, well, if I want to, I can give him an official visit. They don't have to really be picky and choosy either. So I think it's going to weigh itself out, to be honest with you. I really do. But look, good point, though. It is interesting to see how it's breaking down.
And to Holly's point, I would have me a top 130 every year, just because. Why not have a top 130 so every school's just vying for you, so you can just officially visit everywhere?
True.
Yeah,
True. Look, I think
to your point about the running back. I mean, yeah, he's visited Gainesville a million times, but he lives 5 minutes up the road. Has he been to USC? Has he been to UCLA? Has he been able to go out to Oregon? Has he been able to go to Washington? Yeah, no.
A little bit harder for him.
But he can go to all of those now because he doesn't have to just limit his official visits. So that would require him paying to get on a plane and fly his ass out to the West Coast.
Look,
that's a little different than paying for some gas money to hit
down the road. The portal's changed a lot of things too, because I've talked to a little brother about this who's a freshman, and he's talked to kids that are IMG, and then they're a little farther along in the recruiting process. He's been along with these guys. He's been on buses that are their junior year. He went on an entire tour with these kids, so he saw firsthand kind of what they're going through. And he's like, look, the noise and the excitement that was once there for high school kids is not there anymore with the transfer portal. It's just not the same. So there's a lot of changing things happening. These high school kids, and look, Cam Davis shutting down his recruiting. It's a very interesting thing, but I think it's almost got so noisy where it's like I don't want to be involved anymore. I just want to know where I'm going, and I'm going to focus, and I'm going to be bought in, and I'm going to help build this team. So we're going to get to FSU recruit here in a little bit. I don't want to get ahead of me, but a great point here. The next thing is they seem to keep finding their way back onto the show here, and look. Not only are Miami fans getting rowdy, which is fun to see, they came for our heads in our last video, which was exciting. But Miami's back. It only took a week. But they're back. It's crazy. It's unreal. I mean, recruit after recruit, it's unbelievable. What are they, like 7 recruits now? I mean, they might be the best team in college football. I don't even know why Florida shows up. Where are they ranked? Do they got to be like top 10 with their 5 recruits, right, Steve?
Yeah, I believe so. The last time I checked with their most recent recruit, a 0-star offensive lineman, I think that moved them up to a blistering 38th in the nation behind Duke.
Well, massive.
Big,
hey,
right there on the cusp of being
leaps and bounds. Huge. I'm cheesing out because I just see Miami fans hopping in here now. They're gonna be hot when they watch this because we were trolling them. Because last time I felt like we were pretty even keel, and then we got yelled at, which I anticipated. But some people were very unhappy with our comments on Miami. But look, I think as a fan base, you're going to be excited for every recruit. Just watch the film. These guys are going to be studs. These 0-stars and 1-star guys that are coming out, they're going to be absolute killers. They're going to be game changers. Okay? Dave, I know this is your favorite topic. Just watch the film.
Huh? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Especially, I mean, I heard a Miami fan, they said earlier in a Twitter space, they said, well, we started out with a whole bunch of 3-star recruits last year, like 10, and then we wound up in the top 10. And I was just like, yeah, man. I mean, with Ruiz getting sued for $12.5 million in life vault and getting investigated by NASDAQ and everybody else, I mean, that should work out perfectly. I mean, and be top 10 by the end of the cycle. I mean, I think that's perfectly normal. Oh, so you're just sipping on that water. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can keep going. You want me to keep going?
Yeah,
I'm trying to be nice.
It's your show.
That was your show. It's our show.
I love it here.
Okay, well. Yeah, so we got John Ruiz selling his estate for $18 million, and then he had to sell his house for $30 million at a discounted $45 million rate because maybe he's hiding some money before he pumps and dumps that stock again one more time.
The Cavanagh twins, they left as well. So Miami's at an all-time burner. It's good to see that they're finding their rhythm. Love to see it, but we had to get that troll in there. Look, at least we make a video and they get some recruits. I'm not saying Cristobal watches the show, but it's a massive quinkadink that we kind of call them out on the recruit, and they go out there and land some absolute dogs. They did land one of our wide receivers that we were eyeing, so that one stung a little bit. Yeah, that one stung a little bit because we had him on our radar. We were talking about him visiting and whatnot, so that was kudos to them. I will give them the nod there. That way they don't get fully upset with me, but I'm sure it's already too late at this point.
Well, they are in it for like Jashada Trader and some other elites, but I mean, we'll see down the road. So I'm not going to fully yank the carpet away from Miami already, but yeah, it's a tough situation when you you don't have a billionaire savior paying kids to want to come to Miami because they don't want to because they can't fill their stadium and they don't have a football stadium and they have to have their spring game in a soccer stadium that also can't get full.
I thought Ruiz was building them a stadium. Isn't that what they told us last year? They said that Ruiz was going to build them that stadium that they've been craving for, and they wouldn't have to pay rent to Hard Rock Stadium anymore down in Miami.
Oh, they didn't hit their projected. They didn't hit their projected 996 million from their stock. They hit like negative 20. But yeah,
it's just a real shame. Just a real shame.
It is.
So somebody who is heating up a little bit. And I kill it, but Gamecocks, they're slinging that cock around, and I had to. That's not. I mean, what do you want me to do? That's not my fault. That's not. See, I always get pinned for these, but that's not on me. What do you want me to slip? What do you want me to do? They're 6th, right behind Florida State right now in 247's recruiting. We're 10th compared to them with a 92 overall. Some big time 4-star recruits just land. They got Cam Pringle, the number 3 offensive tackle. Now they have Josiah Thompson, the number 4 offensive tackle. They have the number 8 tight end. They got some dogs, man. Some really healthy 4-stars, and coming out of nowhere, it's honestly surprising. It really is. Look, I think so Rattler didn't really show much, but at the end there, he started to get it going. Old Beamer, he's exciting. He's fun. He's got a great attitude, a lot of energy, and I think the kids love it. He kind of gives me the Dion version, the East Coast of Dion, right? You've got Dion out there with a high energy on the West Coast, dominating over there. Shane Beamer gives you that same feel, kind of in your face, doesn't really care, throws some shade, right? He threw the shade at Stoops at Kentucky after their big win. So I like him. I like the coach. I think he's fun. He excites me. So it is interesting to see how they're doing. But I don't like it. I don't like it one bit.
Yeah.
It's definitely bumped up the talent level out there. I'll say that. And it feels like it's just kind of come out of nowhere too. I mean, yeah, they got Josiah Thompson. I mean, just to kind of rattle off a couple of the commitment dates that I'm seeing on three here. That's who I had pulled up going in. But it looks like they just got Josiah Thompson this week within the last calendar week, and then just here over the last couple of days, a 4-star safety out of South Carolina. Kelvin Hunter, just within the last 48 hours, another 4-star corner out of Maryland, just out of in the last 48 hours, another a 3-star tackle, offensive tackle, and then it just right there at the very end of March, they picked up another 3-star guy. A lot of kids out of South Carolina. The one thing I will say that jumps out at me is that, and I never thought I'd say this, South Carolina has been able to put a fence somewhat around the state up there because they have got a ton of kids that are right there in their own backyard, which tells me that Clemson may have a little bit of an issue coming down the road.
That part I do like about
South Carolina is not. Yes, I love that. South Carolina is not exactly known for pumping out a ton of talent. It's a smaller state, and if they're already pulling 1, 2,
3,
4, 5.
Yeah, 5
6.
guys.
I mean, I can see 5 or 6. Yeah,
a couple from
right
Georgia
now that are 4-star guys, all coming. Yeah, to Savannah, who's right down the road.
Pretty close. Yeah.
All these kids are coming from the state, and then right down the road in Georgia. Those are guys that are not going to Clemson, which is even better.
I would say, yeah, for Holly it is because he plays them every year. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure he's happy about that one. But, yeah, I mean, like when you look at it, they're sitting right now at a 92 player average, which is pretty good. That's
healthy.
I mean, it's healthy enough to compete with every team in the nation. Of course, we're going to have to wait till, the end of the cycle. But right now they got 10 commits, so they're pretty far up there. They're ranked number 6 in 24/7 Sports Composite. I mean, you got 2 top 100 guys, a top 50 guy, a guy that's rated in the 123, 138, 202, 205, 227. So they're not doing too bad. They're getting some top 250 guys in there, some top 150 guys, a top 50 guy. Got to hand it to him, man. I mean, as Holly said, I mean, Clemson, I'm actually kind of shocked where Clemson is right now in recruiting. Of course, it's already April, but Beamer's putting it to them right now, especially if they're in that area. So, yeah, man, you have to give props to him, whether you like him or not. Beamer's recruiting, and I mean, I think even Spurrier was able to get some of these kind of elite recruits to come to South Carolina. And now Beamer's doing the job, so you got to give your hats off to him.
Yeah, they finished 17th last year, so with a much healthier start to the year. And they didn't do poorly last year. I mean, only 4 spots ahead of Florida with an 89.5 overall grade, right, 1 spot behind Florida State with 32 commits, a lot of commits from last year. So doing something special there in South Carolina, definitely a team to watch and how this is going to play out over the year. So good for them.
One quick thing to the South Carolina piece, just before we segment. It wasn't that long ago. I just did a quick look back here. The 2021 South Carolina recruiting class was ranked 72nd nationally, 72. In 2022, let's see here, they were able to pull that up to 28th. And then, obviously, last year, we just talked about it, they were able to get that up to 16th. I mean, these guys are not far removed from being out almost at the 75th class in the entire college football stratosphere. So these guys have been able to do a great job turning things around in a very, very quick time. So there's something to be said for what Beamer's got going out there. And that's a tell if there isn't ever been one.
For sure. Next, and this absolutely kills me, is FSU decided to learn how to recruit, not just in the portal, but overall. Landon Cam Davis shuts everything down, number 2 running back, and then you flip the number 1 tight end. Is that right, Steve? I can't remember. Do you remember?
I've heard about it. I haven't really seen a confirmation or anything of that nature.
I hate this.
But I'm only partially excited because it was a flip back to FSU. To Soder's point, when Pride decommitted. It's very rare that somebody decommits and then comes back. Well, this is one of those times. Thomas was committed to FSU. Product on the field wasn't exactly to his caliber of play. Obviously, FSU had a pretty decent year last year, so it looked like maybe the opportunity to get him back was there. And, kind of going back to even with Florida and Cam, right? You may not feel like you've got the real shot at landing him, but you keep recruiting these kids. You stay on him. You keep building that relationship. You may not get that guy, but you may get somebody that he's mentoring that's coming up and through the ranks. And that was the situation with Landon. FSU stayed in contact with him. He committed to Georgia. Nobody flips a recruit from Georgia, right? And we just stayed in contact with him after, seeing a decent product on the field and seeing some momentum in recruiting. Flipped it back. So wasn't exactly a true flip. It was just we're taking back what was already ours.
And I've mentioned a couple times, look, FSU finishes 12th, 13th. They're doing a phenomenal job. Humming on sixth position right now is huge. That's big time. And they finished in sixth. They're going to be cooking with some gas over there at Florida State in the ACC, especially with Clemson having a battle now with South Carolina, it looks like. So I hate this. It literally is killing me because it feels like everything is moving in the right direction. I will say that kudos to Florida State for having patience with Mike Norvell. It's seeming to having to pay some dividends now, a couple years later down the road when everybody wanted him gone, including Steve. Don't let him fool you. But why wouldn't you? I mean, it was obviously a little touch and go there for a little bit. But look, transfer portal has been doing well. Now recruiting starting to heat up. You got your quarterback, 4-star guy. Got your running back, got a tight end. I mean, you got the pieces that you want. These are things that we talk about all the time. And the number one tight end. And for me, not having a top-tier quarterback, I mean, you got a 4-star guy, but you don't have a big name like other schools are pulling in. And again, somebody like Georgia, you're able to flip him back from Georgia, who has proven to push through some massive tight end talent and just having a slew of it. Big pull. I hate it, but I mean, I have to give credit when credit's due. I mean, I feel like last year it was Miami, and now this year it's FSU. Like, it feels like everybody around the state of Florida, including UCF, everything's just elevating. And look, Florida too, but it feels like we're trying to get ahead of everybody, and it's almost like diminishing what we're doing because everyone else is doing really, really well. I'm like, where the hell is anybody else playing football, or is it just these 10 schools around the state of Florida? Like, what the hell is going on?
Hey, you forgot about Miami, man.
I'll give them a little credit. I just looked it up. They're up to 28th. They moved up to 28th. They've got some stars next to names that didn't have stars next to their names a week ago. Those guys got some new stars, just for the record. They're not new names. They just, the guys that they already had, all of a sudden had some stars pop up next to their name.
Quick shout out to Lacey Wiles. Says, "What's up, boys? Flimma family checking in." Shout out for Dahmer if you read this. What's up? Love the support. All right. Well, good stuff on that. Good breakdown. Last thing we're going to go over today is the ESPN Power Index. Somehow Florida found itself in top 18. This is like a preseason poll. Florida State was 13. What's going on here?
It's a weird index, and I'm thinking because it doesn't really give you a breakdown of how they get to this number. And we'll go over it here just quickly. But it's got Florida State at 13th. It's got Florida at 18th. I have to imagine that it accounts for prior recruiting classes and talent that maybe hasn't got onto the field. It's looking at not just your last year's in-season results, but what's projected based on the recruiting and what's gone into building the team up to then. That's really the only thing I can think of, because as we start to chat about this list and where some of these teams fall, it just feels a little discombobulated. But I have to imagine that there's more to it than just the product on the field at the end of 2022.
Dave?
So did you get this list? Did you see this?
Yeah, I saw that it was. Sorry, you came in kind of lagged there. I saw the power index earlier on Twitter and had us at 18, and it does go by like prior recruiting as well as like some of it goes by last year and who you're retaining and who you're bringing back, which I'm actually surprised Florida State was at 13 because I felt like they could have been higher, because I mean, I've seen some, projections of them possibly being like a playoff
Top
team,
5.
whatever.
Yeah.
But if you're Florida State, you win the games, you're going to be up there anyway. But yeah, I was shocked to see Florida at 18. I figured we'd be like unranked or maybe in the lower tier 20s. But I guess it goes to what Billy Napier recruited, the transfer portal on top of that. I mean, you're starting a new quarterback, so you don't have Anthony Richardson. So I was kind of puzzled by that. But I mean, Florida being anywhere ranked in that top 25 right now, just based on what happened last year, But the guys you brought in, obviously transfer portal, and then all the blue chips that you brought in from the prior class, I think there's some belief that Florida could be good, even though that a lot of those blue chips were young. You're still bringing back Ricky Pearsall and some other pieces there on offense as well. The running backs, Trevor Etienne, Montrell Johnson.
That's a big pull. Those are not to be overlooked. Those are two monsters at the running back position. Let's call that what it is.
Yeah, and I think that there's some belief that the defense will get a little bit better too. So I could see where maybe that they ranked Florida probably 18th, but I expected them to be a little bit lower. But I was shocked. I mean, I'm not upset with it whatsoever. But anyway, at the end of the day, you could start unranked, and if you win all the games you're supposed to win, you're going to be in the playoff anyway.
So I saw an article with the Gators being the underdog and everything. They were 9-point underdogs to Utah. They're 6.5 underdogs to Tennessee, and they're 20.5-point underdogs to Georgia for next year. So it's already. So those are going to be interesting to watch over the next year. The Utah one's going to be interesting. I don't know how much of that's going to change as it gets closer to, and the noise on Cam Rising, whether he plays or not, will have a big factor on that. But we've learned in the past that Vegas is pretty good at this. So whatever that tells you it's going to be a close game. Last year it was 3. Guess what? Florida won by 3. Now I don't think Florida was favored by 3. I can't recall. But either way, the spread was 3, regardless how you want to look at it. So they were spot on there. The Georgia game was 20. I think we lost by, or it was 21. I think we lost by 20 because I said they didn't cover the spread. But it was close. So it'll be fun to watch. I think, again, that's always a good gauge on how Vegas views both teams and how well they're going to perform. So the Utah one is something that I'll keep a close eye on, especially with obviously noise coming out of practice and, again, the Cam Rising noise. The Tennessee and Georgia will be a little bit easier to understand because they'll have more to look at. But that first game's obviously a lot, of a guess because they don't have much to go off of. But that spread kind of gives you, again, a good inkling of where Vegas views them and where they probably are.
Yeah, and if you go into Utah at home, they're giving them the home field advantage there on the odds too. So you got to add like 2 or 3 points to that. But if you go in there, you beat Utah, those odds are going to change anyway. Let's just hope that when you beat Utah, you don't blow one to Kentucky the next week or next couple of weeks. But I don't think we got Kentucky. I think it's like we got Charlotte after that, and then Tennessee, and then some other non-conference opponent there. So I mean, you've got a while before all of that. But like, if you do go into Utah, you win that game. You got a game that you can figure some things out before you play Tennessee. So I would say, when those odds get a little bit better.
Hey, real quick, too legit to coach. You just said, Shelton, you invest too much time and energy for bullshit information. You've been in here for the last hour and a half listening to my energy and bullshit. So how much time have you invested?
You could at least do a super chat to try to get that up there. Come on, man.
I mean, dude, you're constantly in here just be negative. Like, if you don't like what you see, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's up, dude?
Hey, save it for the call-in show, man. Just call in.
Yeah, no, he won't. He's been on the call-in show. Those guys always just bark. It's like, golly, dude. Like, the irony there. But yeah, it'll be fun to watch. Kind of again how those were. We'll pull back these receipts to see how that plays out. But all in all, good show, boys. Had a good time. Miami Heat are playing right now, so I want to kind of sign off for that and go watch them play. Hopefully, they're up against the Bucks. We'll see. And the Avs started playoff hockey yesterday. They got whooped by Kraken. So it's a fun time of year. It's a fun, playoff time for basketball, hockey, baseball's in a good swing of things. But we will see.
Baseball's getting rolling a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Braves are on a little burner. Loving that. Mm-hmm. So, but good show as always. Got a great time with Dave. Still have 200 in the chat, which is incredible. We're an hour and a half in, and the love and support is through the roof as always. So love you guys. Appreciate you. Make sure, again, like, subscribe. Like the video. Let's see if we can get some more likes before it's over and done with. Again, hope you guys have a great and safe weekend. Heat losing by 32? Shut the fuck up. No way. No way. No way.
All right, 42. All right. We'll do 42.
Are they really?
See, I was just trying to get him mad, and he didn't go for
it.
So.
Bubba. Oh, Bubba.
We suck, dude.
I thought they were just screwing with you, bro.
Golly, bro.
Look at that.
Bubba.
Can't wait to go watch that game. Can't wait to watch that.
Man, yeah.
Gators baseball, Clint. Let's talk about it, bro. Tell me about it, dude. They're on a little burner too, man. I can't wait for Gator baseball to obviously get into playoffs and to the road to Omaha. That's going to be exciting to watch. And Gator basketball, Todd Golden's working some magic in the transfer portal and recruiting. My goodness, is he doing some work, boys? It's
I don't know much about basketball, but from what he's been doing in the portal, man, that is wow.
What?
Yeah,
so, you guys are portal guys now, huh? I see. Just following.
Well,
following
Hey, to be fair, I think if there's a sport, basketball is a lot different. Basketball, you got to bring in some hot pieces, and those guys, you can find a diamond in the rough at a nobody school, and they come and make an impact. It's a very individual sport, so you can get a couple of studs from nowhere who weren't able to be seen in high school because there's just so many AA leagues and so many places to look. I mean, basketball is a whole other animal in recruit. I couldn't even tell you. It's insane.
Can't keep up with it.
Yeah, it's insane.
Baseball teams got to play South Carolina, don't they?
Yeah,
this
South
weekend without Neely because he got
South
ejected for that celebration. So look, baseball is
celebration.
Braves and Gators baseball is hot and steamy, and I'm loving it. And I love the Gators baseball energy. They're a bunch of bros, dude. They're a good time. So look, we got that going for us. Gator basketball and Gator baseball is hot and steamy, so I'm loving it. But like, subscribe, boys. We'll see you guys next time. If anything happens, we will be live and ready to rock and roll. So be sure to turn the bell on so you do know when we do go live. Follow us on Twitter at High Top Sports and Instagram and TikTok. Love you guys as always. Until next time, I'm Sheldon.
I'm Holly.
And I'm the Dave Meister.
Boogada, 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 boys.
I think of you and all the shit you don't do. Well, I'ma make hella sure that I don't become you.